2026 represents a turning point for every Formula One team, but no team faces bigger stakes than Aston Martin. Lawrence Stroll's infrastructure investment, a new Honda partnership, and Adrian Newey's promotion to team principal have set up what could be their most competitive season in years. Everything Stroll has built toward is ready to deliver. The brand new factory and wind tunnel that swallowed millions of his investment will finally show what they can produce, backed by an exclusive engine partnership with Honda that gives Aston Martin the kind of technical collaboration customer teams rarely see. Steering the ship through all of this is Adrian Newey, taking on the team principal role for the first time in his legendary career. So, can Aston Martin deliver on these bold promises? Where Aston Martin is heading only makes sense if you understand where they've been, and the leadership situation over the past year has been messy. Andy Cowell got sacked as team principal and chief executive officer just 13 months after joining, which raised serious questions for a team that's been building toward 2026 for years. Getting rid of the person steering the ship just as you're coming into harbor doesn't exactly inspire confidence. Something behind the scenes went seriously wrong for Lawrence Stroll to pull the trigger on this decision. Reports from within the team pointed to significant tension between Cowell and Newey over who was actually in charge, and you can see why this would create problems. Newey was the big-ticket signing with shares in the team and obvious final say on the technical front, but Cowell held the titles of CEO and team principal. In a normal Formula One team hierarchy, Cowell would have pulled rank over Newey, except Newey essentially pays his wages, which created an impossible power dynamic that clearly wasn't working. Speculation about Cowell's replacement started immediately. Christian Horner became the media's frontrunner, but Lawrence Stroll literally stood up in front of everyone at the Silverstone factory to shut that down. The reality is that whoever came in as team principal was always going to operate under Newey or share power in some awkward arrangement, which made Newey himself the obvious answer. Aston Martin announced on the 26th of November that Adrian Newey would take over as Formula One team principal for the 2026 season. This moves him out of his managing technical director role, though he'll still have input on the technical side while running the rest of the team. The concern here is pretty clear. Newey becomes Aston Martin's third team principal in just 12 months, and they've been in the middle of the biggest project in team history. Changing the person running that project so frequently can have helped progress, though if you look at what's been happening on track over the past 2 years, there were clearly issues that needed fixing. The outfit finished 7th in the 2025 Constructors' Championship, a disappointing result for any team with championship ambitions. Fernando Alonso's 5th place finish in Hungary stood as their highest result of the entire season, which for a team with Alonso's talent and Stroll's investment is simply not good enough. They've been fighting for scraps in some races, battling just for the last few points available. Alonso insists this underperformance had nothing to do with the decision to give Newey more responsibilities. When asked if poor results influenced the decision, he said no and characterized 2025 as a challenging season, but emphasized that these struggles aren't removing the long-term view of the team. They're not happy with where they are, yet these struggles aren't really influencing any major decisions or changes to the plan. Alonso also revealed he wasn't caught off guard by this management reshuffle because Lawrence Stroll keeps him very much in the loop. They talk once a week on the phone, and when Stroll comes to the races, they have lunch or dinner together every day, which means Alonso gets regular opportunities to share his opinions on what would be best for the team and what's missing. While Alonso stays involved in these conversations, he made clear he's not making the decisions. He's having these nice chats with Lawrence and giving his perspective, but the final calls get made elsewhere. Some people might think it's best to keep Newey in his box and just let him draw cars since that's what he's known for, but Newey is so much more than just an aerodynamicist. His earlier days in Formula One saw him excel as a race engineer, and back when teams were smaller with less money floating around, he had to do a bit of everything. He's even said in his autobiography that the overall design of the car interests him more than just the aerodynamics, and he loves integrating the engine with the chassis and the aero to get everything working together as a complete package. He has the experience and management skills to help Aston Martin perform better than they did this season. The question becomes whether having Newey in charge is enough for Aston to become a top team next season, and equally important, are Honda the right people to be building their engines? Aston Martin gets something exciting for 2026 because Honda will exclusively make engines for them. Now, this isn't quite as useful as being a factory team, but it comes about as close as possible, and the difference matters a lot. Factory teams make their own engines with team members running that power unit, giving them all the data and the ability to make design changes. You can basically do whatever you want with it to make it work for your car. Customer teams like Aston Martin used to be with Mercedes have zero say in what happens with the engine, so Mercedes powertrain employees would run the engine for Aston Martin while the engine stayed whatever shape and size it was. They couldn't change anything about it, which basically adds another set of constraints on your design department and makes their jobs harder. Customer teams don't win championships as a rule of thumb. McLaren bucked that trend in the past 2 seasons, but they still had to overcome a real disadvantage. Aston Martin will technically remain a customer team next season, but with a significant twist that changes everything. Honda will exclusively make engines for Aston Martin exactly as they did for Red Bull when Verstappen dominated the sport, which means Aston Martin can actually request changes to the engine and get it repackaged to suit their aerodynamic design. Honda will still own all the data from the engine, and Honda employees within Aston Martin will still run it, but this is a collaborative deal instead of the transactional relationship Aston used to have with Mercedes. Honda Racing Corporation President Koji Watanabe says this new partnership is on the eve of something very special. When asked about his definition of success, he explained that 2026 is about ensuring the partnership between Aston Martin and Honda functions as planned, working as one integrated team. They need to hit the values they've aimed for and achieve their performance goals. Watanabe was careful to note that the thing they can't predict and is beyond their control is the status of their competitors. So before they know that, they can't talk about anything beyond meeting their own internal goals for the season. But in the longer term, the ultimate goal of this partnership is clear: winning the World Championship. The regulation changes for 2026 include new aerodynamic rules that provide the scope for a very different pecking order next season. And with such massive changes, Watanabe emphasized the need to work collaboratively if there's any deficit in performance early in the new cycle. It comes back to being one team. Watanabe stressed that trusting and respecting your partners while continuing to improve together is vital, and Honda has supplied engines and power units to various teams over the decades with days and years of very good results, but also days and years with poor results. Whatever happens on track, remaining one entity matters most. This philosophy matters because Formula One partnerships can fall apart quickly when results don't come. We've seen it happen time and time again where teams start pointing fingers, relationships break down, and suddenly you're looking for a new engine supplier. Honda and Aston Martin are trying to build something different here, a true partnership where they weather the storms together. The technical changes for 2026 are massive, with new regulations that include a significantly upgraded engine recovery system, though the MGU-H gets removed entirely. This represents the biggest shakeup we've seen in years and creates opportunities for teams to leapfrog the established order. Aston Martin might be the most exciting of all the teams coming to the 2026 grid. In Alonso, they have a driver who is absolutely good enough to make the most of a competitive car, and with Newey in charge of the team and Honda building the engines, all the pieces are in place for them to be genuinely competitive. Watanabe said, "You never know what the competition is going to bring, so all Aston can do is try to be as fast as possible, and we won't have to wait long to see what they've been working on." Honda will provide what's likely to be the first look at a 2026 Formula One engine with an unusual launch event for its new power unit in January. While car reveals are a well-established and popular part of the build-up to a new Formula One campaign, the engines have become a footnote in teams' launch plans, but Honda is doing something different. The manufacturer says it will reveal its engine alongside sharing its aspirations and explaining the new regulations, which should provide a rare close-up look at a modern Formula One engine and the first proper images of one built to the new 2026 rules. Then Aston's actual car gets revealed on the 9th of February. So, are Aston Martin really on the verge of something special? The honest answer is maybe, though they have the right ingredients. Lawrence Stroll has invested enormous amounts of money into infrastructure. They have one of the greatest designers in Formula One history now running the entire team. They have an exclusive engine partnership with a manufacturer that's won championships before, and they have a two-time world champion who's hungry for success. But they also have real concerns. The leadership instability over the past year has been messy. Their on-track performance in 2025 was genuinely disappointing, and we simply don't know what their competitors have been cooking up for these new regulations. What we do know is that Aston Martin has positioned themselves better than almost anyone for the 2026 reset. If the Honda engine is competitive and Newey can create a car that extracts everything from it, Alonso could be fighting at the front again. That's a big if, but it's not impossible, and after years of waiting for Stroll's investment to pay off, 2026 is finally the year we'll see whether this grand project can actually deliver. Are your expectations for Aston Martin as high as mine? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you want to stay updated on everything happening in Formula One this offseason, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.